So Ryan, it's been a minute since you and I did an episode, and by that I mean the last episode we did was just me and you. It's been there's been a lot going on my end. There's been a lot going on your end. You're preparing for a trip. I'm living life, which is a good thing, as opposed to not living life. So we've been busy, but we somehow managed to set aside some time in the last week with our respective partners to go and see a movie that I think neither one of us, well, I don't think either one of us thought it was going to be a bad movie, but it's a movie that's been talked about since the original came out so many moons ago. I mean, the idea of a sequel to Twisters has been a thing that's been a thing since the first movie came out in 1996 and kind of, no pun intended, blew down the doors of the movie theaters because that movie was a massive success when it came out. It launched the career of Jan de Bont. I think Twister is one of, if not, like, it's probably up there for me in terms of like the best disaster movies out there, or like monster movies of a certain kind. I'm not sure anybody's done it better. It's a monster movie of a kind. I mean, again, like, is it a disaster movie? Is it a monster movie? Is it a little bit of both? Those questions and more will be answered on this episode of the Culture Cast, because I am still your host, Chris Dashew, and I'm joined by my good friend all the way from the disconnected Ryan Verrill.
How is this a monster movie? I'm just going to make that my intro. There's no monster. Yes, tornadoes are not
a monster. There is a monster.
It is not a monster.
Nature as a monster.
That's
the movie. I'm talking about the movie's usage of tornadoes. I'm not talking about real tornadoes. Real tornadoes don't do what this movie's tornadoes do in any stretch of the imagination.
You could say it's modeled after a monster movie, but no, to me, this is purely a disaster movie. And
that's
most
fine.
Disaster movies have very similar approaches to these, and that's why I would suggest the same. And honestly, yeah, they are similarly structured to monster movies, and that's okay. There's just no monster.
The monster's the tornado.
The monster is the friends we made along the way.
The monster is human beings. Just because apparently in the new movie they thought it was important to have a somewhat side plot that nobody would care about and makes no sense, and sure. But yes, on this episode of the Culture Cast, I am still your host, Chris Dashew, and we're going to be talking about the long-awaited sequel to the original 1996 film Twister. This film is aptly titled Twister.
The once-in-a-generation tornado outbreak continues across Oklahoma.
We got something big.
Put your harness on. Going to a tornado, for God's sake.
What if we could prevent all this?
You think you can disrupt a tornado?
In theory. If we can get close enough.
Let's ride. You ever see anything like this?
Not like this.
Twisters, rated PG-13, in theaters July 19th.
Too bad it's not called The Twister. That would have been two on. The film is directed by Lee Isaac Chung, based on a screenplay by Mark L. Smith on a story by Joseph Kaczynski. If his name sounds familiar to you, he wrote the script for Top Gun Maverick. The film stars Daisy Edgar-Jones, Glenn Powell, Anthony Ramos, Brandon Perea, Maura Turney, and Sasha Lane. Daisy Edgar-Jones plays Kate Carter, a meteorologist who, similarly to Helen Hunt in the first movie, has a traumatic run-in with a tornado, which colors her life, and then she's drawn back into the world of storm chasing by Glenn Powell, who plays Tyler Owens, a tornado wrangler. His words, not mine. And the movie is similarly about the yearning to understand tornadoes and what makes a tornado and how to stop it. In this movie's case, how to stop or possibly control tornadoes. So yeah, there's a lot going on. We will be spoiling the movie. Before we get to spoilers though, Ryan, did you like Twisters? And would you suggest people go watch it spoiler free?
Yes, I like Twisters quite a bit. Big fan of the original, and I think this was a very much needed, fairly benign positive blockbuster type of film, yes, go see it. It is certainly worth it.
Yeah, I would agree. We were talking about this earlier today when we kind of put this recording together. There aren't a lot of these kinds of movies being made right now. It harkens back to a time in the mid 90s. I mean, from like, a certain time and a place where this kind of movie felt like we were getting it every summer. I mean, this feels like a summer blockbuster, quote unquote, in a way that, like, it's not that movies haven't, but it's been Marvel movies. And like, after a while, I mean, look, Deadpool comes out later this week, so it's not like they're not also releasing something. However, Marvel's only doing one thing this year. That's it. So even they have kind of taken a step back. I would say that if you are looking for a return to 90s big budget summer blockbusters, this is a movie for you. And I think it also elevates itself a little higher than one might expect of something like a Skyscraper or a San Andreas, in that it's not that the spectacle is matched by the emotional resonance with the characters. The characters are actually characters you care about, which, I mean, again, that's a Spielbergian thing. I mean, again, like Spielberg's movies that are kind of disaster adjacent, the characters are well written. In this movie, the characters are rather well written for them theoretically could have been rather one-dimensional, but they aren't. Yeah, I enjoyed this movie a fair amount. I mean, there are some problems with it, and I'm sure we'll get to them. But for the most part, I think it's a fun, hour and a half, hour 45-minute diversion into a world that's I don't know. Twisters has nothing to do with the original, which is a good thing. Like it's not the son of Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton going. It's like none of that. Like Bill Paxton's son is in the movie, but it's a cameo. And it has nothing to do with anything, and it's not a reference to or lip service to anything. If anything, there are slight references to the original movie, and certain lines make a reappearance, but in terms of there being connective tissue to the original, you can watch this movie and have no idea what the original's about.
The only reference that I think that you might get slight more enjoyment out of this movie is the meaning behind Dorothy 5. But literally, other than that, like, there was no genuine overt reference to any of it.
No, which is good. I mean, again, for me, I don't need you to like have Ghost Bill Paxton show up in the final frame to help them survive a tornado. Like, I don't need Ghostbusters Afterlife. Well, Ghostbusters Afterlife was like the most egregious use of like nostalgia baiting and all of that. And it's unfortunate because, again, like the way you do it there affects the way other people think they have to do it. And we've seen all of those similar legacy sequels doing that same thing. And this is a legacy sequel, sort of. Not really. I mean, it's a again, like people chasing tornadoes is not an idea that Twister had a like corner of the market on. They're just the most well known. There have been tons of movies that have come out since about tornadoes. However, not as well done, and/or they feature shark.
Did not expect that last.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing. When we think of movies with tornadoes, I think my mind goes to Sharknado.
Right.
Which is like the worst, best example of taking the disaster movie and slapping something even more silly on top of it. But I think this was a fun movie. I think you should definitely check it out. It's worth going to see in the theaters, which I know it's like sacrilege for me to say that, but your boy here is trying to live a little bit more, so going to the movie theaters is going to be part of that. And I think it's worth seeing on the big screen.
Now that we went through the whole Ghost of Bill Paxton thing, I kind of just want to see a deleted scene of like a transparent Sean Whalen just giving a big thumbs up and saying, "Do it for Aunt Meg and Wakita."
I want at the end of the movie when it like. I want at the end of the movie for the main characters look into the sky and see Bill Paxton, Abraham Lincoln, and a crocodile waving at them. You did it, Happy. We'll have to wait for Happy Gilmore 2 for that to happen.
Oh man.
But let's talk spoilers. So if you went into this movie and saw Kiernan Shipka in the first 10 minutes and thought to yourself, why isn't she in the advertising? Well, find out why.
Very, very quickly.
God damn, I didn't know she was going to be in the movie, did you?
No. And I was pleasantly surprised because I had a Kiernan Shipka double feature with this and Longlegs, and the same thing. Like, she showed up and I went, I mean, the glasses threw me off at first, so I was questioning, like, that's Kiernan Shipka, right? And then she died like 3.5 minutes later. I went, oh, yeah, okay.
That's Kiernan Shipka, right? Yeah.
That was Kiernan Shipka.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the movie's opening with the traumatic event in this movie, I think it actually really is effective. Like
It was, yeah.
it really got me. Like I recently was driving through some really bad weather, and brother, I was getting some like I was not comfortable in the beginning of the movie, which was surprising for me because that's not a feeling that I often get. But I was a little harried watching the beginning of the movie because the initial onus of the movie is you have our main character and her friends going to set off Dorothy 5, which I guess is a furtherance from the Dorothy 1, 2, 3, and 4. Again, it's never explained. I just like to believe that this takes place in the universe of Twisters, which I think it kind of does. They mentioned Muskogee State as well, which is not a real place. But in the first movie, it's a T-shirt that one of the characters is wearing. I believe Jeremy Davies' character, who's also in the original movie, is wearing. So her and her friends go out. Obviously, bad things happen. And, she ends up thinking that she costs her friends their lives. Her and one of her other friends is the only one who survives. Anthony Ramos, who plays Javi, who is also, I believe, in Thanksgiving. Is that right? He was the guy who gets his arm broken in Thanksgiving and comes back.
Oops.
Yeah. I hadn't seen him in anything else, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's the guy from Thanksgiving. But he's pretty good in the movie. I mean, actually, it's not him, surprisingly. Huh? Man, I was wrong.
Wait, are we saying Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving?
No, Thanksgiving. Yeah, I thought he was in Thanksgiving. He looks like the actor from Thanksgiving. I'm just kidding. Anyways, so I think it's probably best now that we're kind of talking about the movie in depth and the characters and the casting. Let's talk about Daisy Edgar-Jones. She is no Helen Hunt.
No.
And I know people don't really like Helen Hunt too. I know some people have some strong feelings on Helen Hunt. Bill Paxton sure did. Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt did not get along, famously on the set of Twisters, which is why in the Twister ride at Universal Studios, there's videos of the two of them like introducing the ride. They refuse to do it together, so it's two different screens shot in two different places, and they just like look at like, all right, look to the right, this is where Helen's gonna be in the video. Okay, pretend like you're interested in that, you don't hate her. Okay, back. They apparently didn't like each other. Daisy Edgar-Jones, however, it's a different issue. I can't tell if it's her because I haven't seen her in anything else, but the character is very flat.
There was no charisma here whatsoever. And it was made even more apparent because you are putting her up against somebody who I had never seen before this, but I have obviously heard of Glenn Powell a lot over the last year, and this guy is oozing charisma out of every single very high definition pore. Yeah.
So that's the problem. Daisy Edgar-Jones is so kind of charismaless and flat, and again, she's not an interesting character. I mean, we understand that she is, dealing with grief and loss, and that maybe has kind of made her a little bit more withdrawn and reserved, but I don't know. Helen Hunt's character had the same issue in the first movie, and she was written a lot more convincingly. The sense of fun to the character was still there. And I mean, I understand it. I mean, Daisy Edgar-Jones, her friends died at the beginning of the movie, including her partner, and then she goes away for 5 years to run away from what happened. So I understand that they were trying to really pivot on the idea from the first movie and do something a little different, but I don't think it was a smart idea to really load the charisma onto one character alone with Glenn. Right. And here's the thing, Glenn Powell's good enough that he makes up for it. I mean, he's good enough that he is able to actually, I would say, carry the movie more or less on his own. I mean, their chemistry is okay. I mean, again, with her not really bringing much to the party, he is having to do a lot of the heavy lifting, but I think he does, a 7/10 good job, right?
I mean, honestly, I have no faults with anybody in this film except for maybe our main character here. And
same.
The main thing I was going to say is I honestly don't think it's the writing, because if you pay attention, especially in the beginning, she's supposed to have this PTSD effect and all that, but she's still snarky as hell. She's still giving the same lines that Helen Hunt does, essentially, in her version of this character to Glenn Powell, but it doesn't land in the same, I don't know, bombastic, sassy way. It just comes across kind of condescending. So maybe not like her at first that much. And even that by the end, I didn't like her all that more. I was just more empathetic.
It's by the end of the film, I was like, I would watch a movie with Glenn Powell again.
Yeah.
And again, it's not to say that she's not a good actor. I just don't think that this is the right kind of role for this actress. I think,
Right.
She was in Where the Crawdads Sing. She is a London-born actress. Like, I don't think they needed to have a Southern actress, but like it might have helped to have like I don't know, like there was a different direction that this movie could have gone with the casting of the main character. And I don't know why they didn't, because I mean, I'm not saying you could have had Kiernan Shipka as the lead. I think that would have been too young to be believable as the lead. But at the same time, you could have. She, like, her scenes in the movie, like, she's a lot more charismatic than Daisy Edgar-Jones is the like 5 minutes she's in the movie. It's unfortunate because I think you're probably right. I think that the writing, I actually think, yeah, to your point, like the writing does seem rather solid. Like the rest of the movie is really well done. I mean, again, they did have a mold to follow, but that doesn't mean anything. Like that means fuck all, frankly. Like we both know that. Like just because Speed 1 was good doesn't mean Speed 2 is going to be good. Like,
well,
even if you follow the formula, right? Like
you can apply that even further for legacy sequels, because so many of them have been so cookie cutter that they just come across as bland. And to me, this did not. This felt like a modernization of a story that we kind of really needed right now. Like to your point about the feeling of the mid 90s, I was stoked just to see like actual location shooting instead of everything being up against a green screen, like these action films that we get for the last, 2.5 years. It's so ridiculous to continuously have that. And now these people, I don't know if they were actually in, Oklahoma and Kansas where they should have been, but even if they weren't, like they were in actual fields. They were not, on a soundstage somewhere bumping along in a fake trailer and it just falling flat on us. But I really wish that they, could have got somebody that felt a little more Oklahoman when you're trying to tell us that she's from Oklahoma. And honestly, the fact that she's from the UK doesn't mean a whole lot to me. It's just that she didn't seem right for this part. And speaking on this as two people that currently live in the midst of Tornado Alley, like you are in Nebraska, I'm in Missouri, Oklahoma is just a couple hour drive from me. There's so many other people that could have, there's so many other UK actors like her that could have fit this better. I feel like Daisy Ridley could have played the part.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like it has to do, my issue with her being from London is that it makes doing a Southern accent that much harder, and that's very apparent because she floats in and out of it throughout. Like she's doing it barely, she's doing an American accent, but the southernness of it all, it's almost like they transcribed her character to New York to try and be like, well, she's been in New York for 5 years, so she doesn't have the Southern accent anymore. And it's like, nah, she grew up in Sapulpa, Oklahoma. Come on now. Like, and that's the thing. It's not to say like, oh, people from Oklahoma don't have an accent. Like they do. That's the thing. And Glenn Powell is going there. That's the problem. Like Glenn Powell's nailing it in every scene. He's nailing that like dickhead character perfectly, but he's so charming. And that's the thing. She, like you said, she doesn't come off as charming. She kind of comes off as condescending. And I think if they hadn't taken her character and sent her to New York for 5 years and try to have that whole kind of plot line of the movie be the opening, I think maybe there would have been a different pivot later in the story that would have made more sense, because this is just, she just miscast, unfortunately. It doesn't drag the movie down, but it is the one thing in the movie that I think is probably the only issue I have with the movie, really.
Same.
Yeah.
I was shocked because I truly loved the first movie. Watched it again this weekend to prepare for this, and I got done and I went, that's still basically like almost a 5-star movie for me. That's pretty much an enjoyable experience, start to finish. Cast is amazing. Love it. Let's do it again. And went to Twisters and walked out and went, damn, did they do it again? Like, I got basically the exact same feeling walking out of it. And I was shocked that the effects were as good as they are. The story was as well written as it was. The location shooting actually helped quite a bit with that. But man, Glenn Powell and just the updated version of a tried and true tale really worked.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the story. So the story this time around, similarly to the last one, is they're trying to figure out what makes a tornado tick. And then in this movie, not only are they trying to figure out what makes a tornado tick, but they're also trying to figure out if there's a way to effectively neutralize or fire extinguish a tornado, which is what Daisy Edgar-Jones's character is kind of interested in throughout the run of the movie. And so what's interesting is it's like we've alluded to, it's similar to the first movie, because the first movie is, they're studying the tornadoes with Dorothy and with the little, the little Coke cans with the little things on them, or the little Coke can propellered things. And so there is a little bit of that in this movie, but that's only really at the beginning. For the most part, the rest of the movie is about how do we extinguish a tornado, which I think is an interesting idea. Now, I know the actual science behind this, or is this just gobbledygook horse shit? I'm pretty sure it's just gobbledygook horse shit. But it's a compelling enough story. And again, the fact that they're kind of situating it in the reality of the world we live in now, which is, there's like, this summer has been pretty crazy with tornadoes. Like it actually has. There was 2 tornadoes here in Lincoln this year, like 1 5 miles from my house. I mean, that's a first for me. That's the closest that a tornado has ever touched down to my house. So yeah, it hits a little close to home, but again, I think in terms of the plot of the movie, to your point, like it doesn't have to be much with these kinds of movies either. It just needs to be enough. It needs to be enough. It's ordinary people doing extraordinary things is what these disaster movies end up being about. And this time it's scientists, so that there's a little bit of a leg up. In the last movie, they were scientists too, but again, like this time it feels a little less ragtag somehow, right? Like, I don't know, like it's clear that the idea has kind of fermented a little bit more here, and they have a little bit more to say, I feel like, because that's the other thing. In this movie, there's a lot of, we need to go help the people out, which I'm not saying there wasn't that in the last movie, but there's a big concerted push in this movie for there to be like, it's less about watching Carrie Elwes get owned and dying, which like would have had no place in this movie. Like, and that's the crazy thing, is this also feels like a much nicer movie than the original Twister, right?
It does, and that's where I kind of want to really hit hard something which I loved about this movie, which is super rare, especially on Blockbuster. You just hit the first part for me. Is in our first movie, Carrie Elwes is essentially the villain. He is like the person we're trying to foil. And in this movie, they set the first at least like act and a half up that our villain, quote unquote, is this bombastic YouTube streamer found in the most charismatic man alive, Glenn Powell. And as he is, essentially using a t-shirt cannon in a disaster zone and, literally shooting fireworks up into a tornado, they take this story and flip it on its head, where his group is actually helping everyone so much more than who Daisy Jones, or
Daisy Edgar-Jones.
That's her name. I was thinking of Daisy Ridley still. Daisy Edgar-Jones, aligned herself with her old scientist friend, who is now aligned with, big corporations that are just greedy. But they had the opportunity to go into the stereotypical Southerner bad, Southerner ignorant, Southerner, bombastic, awful, brooding, overly loud and brash character, and they made him essentially the hero that she needed. And when they came together, it's what made it work. And I truly loved that. And when you're looking at things that are affecting things in Oklahoma and Arkansas and Texas and Missouri and Kansas and Nebraska, those are going to be the type of people that are going to be here and know this area. So
right.
It was nice to see that.
Well, and again, I mean, with the lack of this kind of human villain in this movie, because again, like the original, it's not that it didn't need Carrie Elwes, but like it didn't, like it you have a movie about tornadoes.
The tornado should be the villain.
Yeah, you don't need a fucking human villain in your tornado movie. And if you have a villain, this movie I think did it the right way, where it's like
there's a billionaire somewhere.
Yeah, he's exploiting the fact that people's businesses are being destroyed, so he's buying the land out from underneath them and giving them money, and they're fucking off. Like, he's a villain per se, but at the same time, like, it's the kind of villain that this kind of movie can get away with, which is like, he doesn't get in the way of the rest of the story. He's kind of incidental to what's going on.
Well, and to contrast what we saw in the first movie, we don't need to see the villain literally die in a tornado to feel good about it. So
no, which to me is like so bizarre that the first movie went there. Like watching this new film, it's like it's much more interested in telling the story of Glenn Powell and Daisy Edgar-Jones, which I think is the right call. Like, it's 100% the right call. And yeah, I think for me, I preferred the idea behind this movie and the sensibilities that this movie is going for so much more than the sensibilities that are being brought to so many of these kinds of movies right now. Because they don't make movies like this anymore. They really don't.
It's a smart choice. I really really enjoyed looking back on that afterwards and noticing that there are lots of bad choices they could have made, and it seems to me the only one they did make was in casting. Like, that is a big victory in 2020.
Yeah, I think that Glenn Powell he has big things ahead of him. I hope he doesn't get scooped up by the MCU and just locked into contracts until he's blue in the face like so many other people have now. And I could foresee it happening because that's how this happens with the MCU. Somebody has a good summer, and then 2 summers from now, Glenn Powell is Wolverine. Uh-oh, I just made that happen, didn't I? I mean, he could pull off Wolverine. He totally could. I actually could see a version of Wolverine played by Glenn Powell that would make perfect sense, especially in the MCU, because I think that's the other thing. Glenn Powell is probably perfectly set up for the MCU in a lot of ways. He's good looking. He's very young. And he has he can do a very distinct accent if need be, and he's very charming, which is why he's put to good use in this movie, and why every time he's on screen, you're just like, you can't stop looking at him. I haven't gotten a chance to watch Hitman yet, but I really want to check it out because of his involvement, obviously. But yeah, I really liked this movie. I think that, I mean, it's not that there's not a lot to talk about, but it's a fun movie that I didn't go into it expecting to get much out of it.
Yeah, and beyond that, like, this movie's kind of already been talked about because it's very similar to the first movie, just sort of updated and almost in a way improved, like a lot of things. Like, this isn't necessarily a remake. It's just sort of an addition to an idea, and that it's not a reboot. It's not anything.
No,
it's just
has nothing to do with the original at all.
It's just another story in life about tornadoes, and it just so happens the same production company had the right to the name Twister, and they put an S on the end of it. And who knows, maybe in 8 years we'll get Twister, and instead of an E it'll be a 3. Who knows?
No, we will be getting Twister 3. That is happening. This movie made too much money for them to leave it on the table. I mean, this movie made a lot of money.
It made $80 million in the first weekend. I give that to you. However, you already mentioned what could be its big downfall, and that's that Deadpool is opening this weekend. I could see this having a massive down to the second.
Yeah, but Deadpool's rated R.
Yes.
And adults aren't going to take their kid. Look, the movie theater was packed with family.
It's same.
Yeah. Families aren't going to take their kids to see Deadpool. It's just not going to happen. I don't foresee that happening. And right now, there's not much else. And they're not going to take their kids to see Longlegs. Okay. They're not gonna take their kids to see Fucklegs. I wish they would.
Oh, man.
So I guess I wanted to ask you, because you did mention that we both had a rather hilarious double feature. Should we just do a half Z here? Do we want to just pivot here? Do a half Z?
Sure, let's pivot to Longs.
Yeah, so let's kick back and let's talk about the movie. Let's talk about a movie that doesn't need us to talk about it, because Jesus H. Christ, everybody and their fucking mother has been talking about it. We're also going to be covering on this episode of the Culture Cast 2024's super hyped release to the scariest movie of the year. Your shit will literally crawl out of your ass and hide behind the seat in terror this summer. Check out Longlegs.
I'll be waiting.
What aren't you telling me?
Put the gun down!
I know you're not afraid of a little bit of dark. Because you are the dark.
So Longlegs is written and directed by Osgood Perkins. It stars Micah Monroe, Blair Underwood, Alicia Witt, and nobody else. I promise. Nobody else is in the movie. Nobody else is in the movie of note. I promise. Nick Cage isn't in the movie. They didn't advertise him, so he's not in it.
Kieran
right?
Shipka. We got to mention
right. Kieran Shipka's in it too. And pre-spoilers, Longlegs is essentially, on the face of it, a serial killer thriller in the vein of Seven and Silence of the Lamb. If you want to know nothing more about the movie, now is your opportunity to jump off. I think, Ryan, you and I would both suggest people check it out.
I would definitely suggest people check it out, but I would also say rather than Seven, I would throw in Zodiac as probably a better comparison.
I don't know if I agree with that. Huh.
We're gonna have to talk about it.
Yeah. I'm interested. Okay. Yeah. Look, I will say this much without spoiling the movie: the less you know about it, the better, and the less you've heard people belating it, the better as well. Because I think that this movie, unfortunately, has become the object of too much praise. I'm not saying it doesn't deserve it, but I think, unfortunately, the groundswell in the last month or two around the movie has been a bit much. And I think it's also probably made some, I would say it made some, not promises as it were, but I think it said some things and did some things that, I don't know. I don't think you're going to go into the movie and know what you're going to get if you were only solely watching advertising, the mainstream stuff.
We're going to have to spend actual time talking about this.
Yeah, this is probably harder to deal with without spoiling it. So check it out. Just don't know anything. Know about as much as I've told you.
Don't even watch a trailer.
Yeah,
you can do that if you haven't seen one.
Yeah, at this point, I wouldn't even do that. So yes, from here on out, we will be spoiling Longlegs. So, Ryan, spoilers and all, what did you think of the most hyped horror movie of the year? At least so far.
We're going to talk about the hypes and the expectations in a bit, because that's a completely different discussion.
Yeah, it has to be.
The movie itself, I am very happy that horror royalty can continue to bring scares to people. Obviously, this, for people like you and I, is not an inherently very scary movie, but there are a couple like jump scares, and we'll say he uses violins a lot in this movie. Yeah.
We will say he uses them a lot is probably an understatement.
The fact that Anthony Perkins' son could do this after he was, first appeared on screen in Psycho 2 is fan-fucking-tastic, and I'm super, super happy that we have somebody in the horror community just like that. I will say the movie itself, Zodiac, is literally one of my favorite films of all time, like top 3 or 5 at best, probably. And when I mentioned that I think this is more akin to Zodiac rather than Seven, I mean, we have the whole puzzle, aspect of it. We have the actual cryptic that they're solving, and in Seven it's more of just tracking a serial killer that they're a couple steps behind, more so than puzzles. But with this, I truly appreciated all of the acting. I think the casting was spot on. I personally, because of how much I love things like Seven and Zodiac and Silence of the Lambs, I kind of wish there wasn't the whole, I don't know, supernatural aspect thrown in.
Agreed. It's sorry, but it's dumb, and it's poorly executed, and I think that it gets in the way. I think it gets in the way of an interesting story, because I don't think that the doll demon thing, for me it didn't move a needle the way I think Osgood Perkins was hoping it would move a needle for me as an audience.
Those are two different things, though. I want to point that out for people. I think he did not fumble anything. I think all of this was done exactly the way he wanted to do it. We just didn't want the outcome that he was setting out to put at the end of it, because everything.
I like the outcome. I don't like the vehicle through which it got there. Me personally.
He was using that intentionally. That's exactly what he wanted to use. It wasn't him fumbling. All of it was, if you go back and watch the movie again, it was all telegraphed through everything that he is setting up. There was nothing that he messed up in the plot.
No. Let me clarify the fumble. I think the fumble is having supernatural stuff in this movie at all. I personally would have preferred a movie sans any of that at all, because for me, Silence of the Lambs doesn't have it. Zodiac doesn't have it. Seven doesn't have it. And for me, I would have preferred a movie actually more akin to those movies. That's what I mean by it's a fumble. I mean, it's genuinely like the supernatural stuff. The supernatural stuff felt, and again, I used to host a show called Scary Stories Retell, where we did an episode on Michelle Remembers, which feels part and parcel to this, because again, it's the satanic panic. And it's almost like they wanted to, and I don't know. I wanted to go with it with the satanic and the supernatural, but for me, I think the pieces of the movie would have fit better together if it had been less the supernatural and more the terrestrial, with maybe like a true detective twist on it, which is like maybe something's going on, but there's less, not obvious, but it's less apparent. Yeah, overt, apparent. Like Longlegs makes it pretty apparent what's going on. When I was reading kind of feelings and thoughts about the movie after I watched it, people were like, I don't understand what those balls in the head are. And I was like, they fucking explained it in the movie. Like they literally explained it. And when I was reading reviews about the movie, I was like, man, there's must be some stuff that's like kind of just filmic language of the movie. It's like, no, that's like overtly presented at a point where like a guy puts like a sound meter at the thing. He's like, listen to this. I was like, it's like, what the fuck is going on? How are people missing what's going on here? I just was not a fan of any of it. Not because it's not explained. I think the not explaining it actually works in the film's favor because at least it's not like, well, here's what happened. But then the movie does do that in like a shockingly, I wouldn't say lazy way, but I wasn't expecting an exposition dump at the end of the movie. And it just kind of, it's like barfs it onto the screen via Alicia Witt, which I wasn't expecting. And at the same time, I felt like I didn't need it. Like it felt like it was from a different movie, not written by Osgood Perkins, and I'll tell you why. I went and rewatched Blackcoat's Daughter. There's none of that in that movie. There's no like explaining of what's going on.
It
like,
doesn't need to be. That's
I don't think Longlegs did either. I felt like for as much as I wasn't on board with the supernatural, I don't think he needed to have the mom telling us what happened when they kind of already did. They showed I know, but it just I guess for me it's like I felt like Osgood Perkins had done a good enough job for me as a viewer to understand where he was getting at. Maybe it's the Ari Aster of it all now. I expect filmmakers to like not have to feed me like the exposition.
This is not even about spoon feeding. This is about literally coping with trauma. And
sure.
The Micah Monroe of the entire film is the exposition at the end. And it's not about spoon feeding. It's about literally explaining what the movie is about in a way that doesn't come across as spoon feeding. And that's where, I don't love, the words being attached to this of fumble or the story doesn't come together, because I think that is completely wrong. I think the story came together exactly how we wanted it to. You and I would have preferred a different story. But for somebody that is trying to tell a story about parental trauma, that, to be completely frank, I know a lot of people are tired of horror movies dealing with trauma and every single one. I hate this shit. However, it is needed. There is a lot of stories about shitty parents that have not been told. And the outcome of this movie, being as it is, can show that there are outside forces and internal struggles that can lead to a rough childhood, that can lead to trauma, that can lead to something that will hang with you for literally your entire life until, as it said in the movie, she is now set free. But when you see it on screen like this, it's not that he didn't get there. It's not that the story didn't come together. It's that I desperately am yearning for another movie as good as Zodiac that has that same feeling. And this got like 65% of the way there. And I almost was there, and I'm tired of being edged. However, we are at the situation where you lean into the devil, and I lose it all because I don't believe in any of that shit, and it just didn't have the same.
You gooning, bro, for Zodiac? You gooning for a Zodiac movie?
I would simp for Fincher to do a Zodiac 2 Electric Deathaloo any day.
Zubaloo, a Zodiac 2 Electric Zodaloo. Yeah, I mean, I get your kind of wincing at me saying fumble, but again, I mean, that's a me thing. I get it. I mean, again, the supernatural of it all and the supernatural less the satanic, like I'm cool with the satanic. I got a satanic Bible sitting on my shelf over there. It means diddly. Right. Like that was fine. Like Nick Cage going, "Hey, I'll Satan," like that shit's hilarious. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, I mean, you're probably right. Some of this does come from me just being like, come on, King Zodiac, please. Right. But yeah, because I mean, you said it. I will go one step further, and I will say the thing that's probably heretical to some people. Zodiac is my favorite Fincher movie, period. And I would say it's probably my second favorite movie. I think it and Goodfellas go back and forth. Like they're both 3-hour long movies, and I could put either one of them on and just sit and watch the whole thing and lose track of the time. And at the end of it, be like, well, there's 3.5 hours gone. Good. Because every time I watch either of those movies, I'm immensely entertained and I always notice something new. Longlegs, I don't know how long of the legs the movie will have. I genuinely don't know if 3 months from now we'll be talking.
Oh,
I don't know.
disagree.
I don't. Well, I don't know. And here's why. And this was something that you said to me in text message last night that I agree with. I think the best part of the movie is Nick Cage, and I wanted more of it, and there's not enough of it. And I think, unfortunately, look, I mean, obviously, I know you're probably going to tell me a couple things. And I will agree with anybody who says less is better. And I agree with that. Like, but at the same time, less is better. But when it's that compelling and fucking bizarre, I can't help but want more of it. Now, would I want an entire movie of Nick Cage screaming and yelling? And no, but the movie doesn't give us enough. And I think that may be my singular actual criticism, is that for a movie like Seven, which I think this movie's modeling itself after, at least in some respects, the way it treats the usage of the killer. I mean, that movie didn't bill Kevin Spacey either, right? He's not billed in the opening credits. He shows up as the first credit at the end of the movie, but he's not advertised in the trailer for the movie, is he?
He is, no, definitely not. But Nicolas Cage, his name has been marketed with this very heavily.
But
Kevin Spacey's
initially,
never was.
Initially with Longlegs, it wasn't, right? They, like, the first trailer I saw for the movie in like March, it didn't have Nick Cage's name on it. It only had Micah Monroe's name.
Trailers are very different than the full marketing.
I know. But like, the early stuff had nothing to do with Nick Cage, is what I'm saying.
The biggest thing is there was a 2-minute trailer that played for Longlegs before something like 6 weeks ago. That trailer never even made it online. They made a completely different trailer to be online. So their marketing has been purposefully done on that part. However, a lot of their actual marketing has literally leaned into, you should see how fucking scary Nicolas Cage is. It's so scary, we're not going to show you.
Now.
That's very, very... No. Long before the movie came out.
Well, what was I seeing early on that didn't have him in it at all? Because I saw some stuff.
None of the trailers did. And, well, but
they didn't even have his name on the trailer.
I'm not talking about the trailers.
Well, no, I don't know what. I don't know what the hell it was I saw them. But yeah, like, that's, I guess, is not having enough of him in a movie where you're not advertising him a good or a bad thing, I guess, is the question.
It's a good thing, because I walked out immediately saying Nicolas Cage is Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs right now. Not as good of that performance, but in the film for the shortest amount of time as possible, to be incredibly effective and to make you afterwards go, holy shit, I could have had at least another 30 minutes of that. And then you think about it and go, well, no, maybe it was more intimidating because of how little he was in it. And in Silence of the Lambs also, he was marketed as the main villain, just like Nicolas Cage was, when in all reality, neither one of them were the main villains of their film.
Okay, so let's talk about that then. So Alicia Witt is no Ted Levine. You're no
of course not.
Sharon Stone, as they would say.
Of course.
Your mom is no Sharon Stone. So yeah, for me, look, Alicia Witt's great, but was it a twist? Was it a twist, really? In a movie with like 10 people? In a movie with 10 people? Is it a twist?
I'm not even talking about Alicia Witt. I'm actually talking about Satan being...
Oh, okay. Is that what you were going for? Okay, I was curious if that's what you were leaning into or not. I would agree. Satan, I think, is a much more compelling villain in Longlegs, looming large.
The fact that they marketed this as a serial killer movie and the villain as Nicolas Cage, when in all reality, it's a supernatural power behind it. You were absolutely not expecting that until the last 25 minutes or whatever. Since we are talking spoilers, I do want to say I've loved Alicia Witt for a long, long time. She was great in Urban Legend. She was great in the show Justified. She is a fantastic singer. I've got, multiple songs of hers in my playlist. The moment she was on screen in old age makeup and I knew it was her, immediately I went, oh, fuck, she's involved. Like, immediately.
Yeah.
Why else would they have not cast an old lady to be her mom? It had to have been somebody that was involved.
Small cast movie, too. That's what I was alluding to. It's like 5 people in this movie. It's like Micah Monroe, Nick Cage, and Blair Underwood. It's like, and Alicia Witt. That's it.
I didn't even know Alicia Witt was in it until I saw her sitting on the bed. Like, that was crazy. And the moment that, she turned her head and I went, because her mouth you can recognize anywhere because she holds it oddly. And I was like, oh, It's Alicia Witt. Okay, she's involved. She's doing something with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, she knows all about the Kwisatz Haderach, according to Dune. Baby Alicia in Dune, the original David Lynch Dune. I mean, she's good, but she's good in everything. Like that's yeah. But it is a little like, who do you think? I love that. I love that Longlegs has just been in the basement of her house.
Yeah.
It's not to be like, we're smart moviegoers. We watch a lot of movies. I'm not watching one movie a week, and that's the problem. So if you don't watch just one movie a week and you're watching movies all the time, it's like anything else. You pick up on patterns. You see things being repeated. That's what you would expect from us sitting here talking about movies, is that we're internalizing and cognizant of the choices that the filmmakers are making. So I didn't find anything in this movie to be boring as a twist, really. I think it made narrative sense. I mean, the M. Night Shyamalan movie Trap will have more of a twist to it, I'm sure, than this movie did. Like, this movie's pretty upfront where it's going.
I can't wait to see Trap.
I'm assuming that there is going to be some big ass twist in the movie.
Oh,
like he's not the butcher or something, like, or they think they're there for
it's Jigsaw and he's the next Carrie Ellis helping him.
Oh my God. But the thing I've seen is like, what if it's in the Split universe? I'm like, fuck off. We don't need any more of that. Please, like, go away. Like, or the
three were great enough.
Or the other thing that I've seen for Trap, because they keep showing the preview for it every time I go to the theaters now, is maybe he's Haley Joel Osment's character from Sixth Sense all grown up.
Oh,
and I'm like, fuck you. Like, we don't need that. Stop. Like, look, M. Night Shyamalan can do bad on his own. He doesn't need our help fantasy booking his movies and fucking destroying them. Avatar: The Last Airbender's bad enough as it is. And that's not his. I mean, yeah, he has 3 bad movies and plenty of good ones, is my point. Like, and those bad movies are, your mileage is going to vary with M. Night Shyamalan. But yeah, I think that movie has is going to have more of a like out of left field twist than this movie did. Like, maybe the only twist was that by the end of the movie, the FBI agent that's, her boss, it ends up being his family. But is that a twist? When they've shown us one family on screen with a kid, it's like, they got to be involved somehow by the end of this. It's Osgood Perkins is such a, like we've already alluded to, like, he's so particular in the way that he writes. He's like, he introduces something intentional. And so it's like, I assume that they're going to play into the end of the movie. And then they did. That scene at the end of the movie is fucking insane, though.
Yeah, great. Really, really well done. I mean, even, the parts that are done for shock, like Nicolas Cage bashing his face in the interrogation room, it was really well done. Fucking insanity. Kiernan Shipka's monologue, it was incredible. She delivered the hell out of it. And
one scene, all she needed to be one scene in this movie, just like in Twisters. And just like in Twister, she dies in this movie.
Immediately.
Yeah, well, I guess in this movie, she dies off screen. She just jumps off the roof of a building, which is, right? Isn't that what they said? They're like, she jumped off the roof and killed herself. Like,
well, and she did mention in her monologue that she could do that. So it was kind of foreshadowed. I will say, like, I'm slightly soft on this film. I think on Letterboxd I'm sitting at like a 4. But the more I think about it, the more I think, like, I know that it's a great movie. I just know it's not the movie that I wanted. And that leads me into what I think the bigger conversation here is, and that's the market. And not just the marketing, but the fact that in 2024, we are having people completely, like, praise films without really understanding what they've watched, or excoriating film after having watched it because they expected a different movie, or even worse, doing either one of those things without ever having really watched the films. And so Twisters and Longlegs, I think, is a tale of both sides. I think with Twisters, we're going to have a lot of people that don't go and see it first weekend, that come out of it, they don't come out of the movie, but they come out of the weekend being like, oh yeah, another remake did really well. That sucks. Now we're just going to get a whole bunch more. No, watch the fucking movie. It's actually pretty great.
Yeah,
Longlegs.
Agreed.
All these people saw the really shitty marketing by Neon that said, this is going to be the scariest movie you're ever going to see. Go see it. Nicolas Cage is a monster. And yes, he's a monster. This is nowhere near even like the top 300 scariest movies of all time. And yet, there are people that are going to walk out of here and feel like it's a bad movie because that expectation was not delivered on. So my moral of this whole story, we need to find a way to have, like, the general public or also good critics that can enter into a movie with expectations, but not have the expectations taint they're feeling about the
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say you mentioned Nicolas Cage as a monster. Like, I actually wonder if the people who went and saw this movie, that saw the advertisement, I wonder if they're actually like, "Wow, Nick Cage was so scary." If they're like, "What the fuck is this?" Because that's the other thing. John Doe, Kevin Spacey in Seven, chilling. Nick Cage in this movie, it's not that he's not scary. It's different. What he's doing is he's being weird. I was joking with you on the phone about this. Like, there's no way this guy goes out in the world and people are like, that guy's got fucking heads in his freezer. Like, he's eating penises at home. Like, he's written so obviously evil and weird. It's like no one ever thought to follow this guy home. I mean, look, I know that that's being hyperbolic and but Nick Cage in this movie, you know what? There's a little bit of this, and I wonder if you're gonna you'll agree or kind of look at me askance on this. There's a part of me that wonders if Nick Cage in this movie is a little bit like Johnny Depp in Tusk. It's like, no, but hold on. Not for me and you, but like, think about the way people like you, because I know you're not the biggest fan of Depp in Tusk, right?
Not the biggest fan. I think he's a waste of screen time and never should.
Right. So I understand why, like, I'm not talking about that aspect of it.
I know what you're getting at.
It's the decision that is made to do a thing to an actor to make them unrecognizable. And I think it becomes, with Johnny Depp, it verged onto caricature and was there. And in this, it's like, again, like, it's such a thing that, like we've said, like, the advertising didn't show it. And I wonder if the advertising didn't show it because if they showed it, it's not actually that scary, is what I'm getting at. Because like you said, like, it's the scariest movie ever. And you said Neon did a shitty job. I think Neon did a good job. I just think
no.
I think what they did is shitty. I think what they did is shitty, but they did a good job at getting people interested in this movie that would have
100%.
no interest. But that's bad business practice, because this is an art house horror movie that has more wide angle shots than most films I've seen before. This is not like a Friday night popcorn horror movie. It's just not. And Maxine is that movie in a lot of ways. Like, if you want to have, like, you've got a 80s set movie, you have a female lead, it's kind of bombastic and fun, go ahead. This movie is not that. And I get where they were advertising it that way, because I don't think the audience that probably showed up having seen the things that you and I are alluding to, they would not have shown up if there had been no advertising, A, and B, if they had advertised it as an art house horror movie, who cares?
100%, yeah. Neon brilliantly got people to sit in the seats. That is absolutely not what I was saying. It's the fact
but
that
it is shitty.
You and I are both very tired of movies being sold to us that are not the movies that we're seeing.
What was there a movie that came out earlier this year that was like that?
Civil War. I've heard it might divide us all.
Yeah, we're really still divided over it. It's a really divisive movie, is what. Yeah, God.
But yeah, the whole Johnny Depp thing, hard disagree. I don't think it was done in like a malicious way, or the hiding was. Anyways, let me explain this in a interesting way. So supposedly Nicolas Cage's character in Longlegs was modeled after the singer of the band T-Rex, which had multiple references in this film. They had multiple songs played. There was actual printed lyrics at the beginning of the movie. And he was modeled to look after him, including like the hair, the face shape. It wasn't quite as extreme as the guy from T-Rex isn't as extreme as Nicolas Cage. But essentially, Nicolas Cage is just a normal dude that just looks a little weird. Now, what is the problem for me here is I get more fear out of the way that he behaves. It's not about how he looks. I don't think people should be, following the guy home because of how he looks to see if he's a serial killer. It's that this also could be alluding to the fact that we have a fucking mental health crisis in this country, so much so that people can be out in public and do things that are wholly unacceptable, and we don't have enough resources to handle any of it, so stuff like this could happen. And so that's what's more terrifying to me. And, even comparing to John Doe and Seven, I'm much more terrified, to be honest, of Nicolas Cage and Longlegs than of John Doe and Seven. I think in John Doe, he's just cold and calculating, which, honestly, I can expect something out of that. If somebody's just literally insane, I don't even know what to see as move number 2 from this person.
Is he insane? Is he insane? No, that's the thing. He's not insane. That's the problem. He's sane. He's the sanest character in the movie because Satan clearly exists. And he was right. Is that not the entire... That's why I appreciated the ending of the movie. Because the ending of the movie is like one big middle finger to the audience, which is fine. I loved that. The movie just goes, Hail Satan, I won. Click, 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 click. I mean, that's the end of the movie. But I think that for me is maybe the best part of the movie is the inevitability of it. And like you said, everything's telegraphed throughout the movie. Like rewatching it a second time, I was like, oh yeah, okay. Like, oh yeah, okay. Like it's good in that respect. It's well put together. But yes, I do wish it was Zodiac. But Zodiac doesn't have an ending, but neither does this movie. Like I've seen the complaints about this movie. It's like the end of this movie is insane. It makes no sense. It's kind of a bummer. And I'm like, yeah, the devil wins.
I don't see how you just said this doesn't have an ending. It very clearly has an ending. However,
no, I'm saying it has an ending. I'm talking about the people on the internet. I have seen like, what's the open-ended ending of the movie? I'm like, there's no open-ended ending of this movie. Like, it's apparent what is going on here.
You had just said Zodiac doesn't have an ending, and neither does.
Zodiac does not have an ending, is what people will say. And people will say this movie doesn't have an ending either. Because, I mean, and I guess, do you think Zodiac has an ending?
Not in the film.
Right. But you can see how people would say this, I don't understand this movie doesn't have an ending that's satisfying. Like, I mean.
That I don't understand. Everything is almost like too clearly wrapped up.
Right. I mean, they have Nick Cage at the end of the movie talking to you, the audience, directly. Like, what else needs to be said?
The only thing that could be theoretically possible is there is still a doll that we did not see destroyed that they could lean into a sequel, and I really hope they don't, and I don't think Osgood Ferkins will. However, like, there could be something else that comes, because we are... this is like in art house horrors. This is one of the examples of a movie where if you just keep watching the story that the movie is telling for another 10 minutes, the main character is about to get fucked up legally, because there's no way that somebody comes into that situation and believes what she says has happened.
Unless she just goes, this is what's happened to all the other families.
But how would they believe her? She would be literally under arrest as a suspect until something gets figured out. And
so much of this movie, like, she's going into places by herself. Like, I can't believe they let her into that room with Longlegs by herself. Like, because they're like, it's like, you're related to, you know something. I mean, I get it. Like, he's calling to you and wants to talk to you, but like, then the guy just starts killing himself and nobody rushes in to stop him or anything. It's just like, she's, well, the way I interpreted the end of the movie is, she's just gonna kill the kid, right? Isn't she possessed by the doll at the end of the movie? Like, doesn't she finish the work because she can't destroy the doll?
What it would need to be is she destroys the doll so that the child's soul could be.
But she can't. So what happens, right?
Why couldn't she shoot the doll?
She can't shoot the doll. It's clicking the gun. The gun keeps clicking when she's shooting.
Get another gun. This is
just get another gun. Just get another gun.
There's more guns literally in the room with her already.
But that's not the point of the movie, no.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, if you go on further, no. It's
the ending has meaning.
It's not that
Cinema Sins. Go pick up another gun. She could have just picked up another gun and shot the doll.
It's true. It's not that she has to kill the other kid. It's that she has to set that soul free. And that's why supposedly, like, the Russian or German or something, the actual translation of this film title over there is Soul Collector. And I like that so much.
Than Longlegs?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it tells you a lot more about the story than Longlegs, and that's not what Neon wanted to do. But fuck me for wanting to be sold a story I'm going to see.
Yeah. How dare you? Is this more egregious than Civil War? Or is it not as egregious because we enjoyed this movie?
It's not as egregious because Civil War it can literally affect the daily lives of the American.
Theoretically, it could have.
Oh, no, like, I guarantee you, people went to this movie wanting to see people get owned. No matter what side.
It didn't happen though, thankfully.
Nobody went into this movie and like wanted to see a serial killer movie and walked out being just, I'm gonna go complain to the president that this was about the devil.
Yeah. I don't think I need more of this though. I think I'm good. Like, I don't need Longlegs to what happened to Micah Monroe, like, or she becomes like her mom. Like, I don't need any of that. Like, I don't.
Coming in 4 months, short arms, long
legs and short arms. You know what they say about guys with long legs and short arms? I don't know. They look like T-Rexes, maybe?
Can't tie their shoes.
Is that what it is? Long legs, short arms, T-Rex the band? Wow. Osgood Perkins is operating on 4D chess.
I think that's the perfect end of this episode.
I like how people are also getting mad that they were using T-Rex in the movie. Like what the people want? You know what people want? People don't want to have fun. I just want to see Nick Cage scream "mommy" at the top of his lungs and do weird shit. Like, give me just all the outtakes of Nick Cage in those scenes. I just want to see the dailies of Nick Cage, please.
I want the on the disc content to have the 26-minute video of him singing. I do want to throw one thing out here for everybody that loves watching a movie and then going and reading a very competent film critic. One of my favorites is Walter Shaw. He is an incredibly verbose individual that has a vocabulary that makes me question my daily life sometimes, and I like that because he challenges me as a viewer. And he wrote about this over on Film Freak Central, and it is an astounding review. He gives actual links and feelings about the T-Rex stuff. He gives a lot of compelling reasons to appreciate this movie, much more so than we said today. And I think he's the best in the game, and somebody should probably give him a lot more attention tonight.
Yeah, and he probably is also more honest than some people have been about the movie, which is helpful. I mean, look, we know people that wrote early reviews that I agree with. And then I've seen plenty of other reviews that I'm just like, what movie did you watch? Like,
again, that was the expectations writing the review, and that is embarrassing.
Yeah, Josh Hurtado's review is great. His review is straight up honest. Like, you know what? Like, the movie is well put together. And I do think that most of the frames of the movie there's more going on in the movie. I do feel like I do think the more I watch the movie, I'll probably see more things going on. But then I've seen some of the other reviews that are like, it's a modern day Silence of the Lambs. I'm like, you are such a fucking liar. Like, what in God's name? Like, look, this movie's good, but Silence of the Lambs is a perfect movie.
Yeah,
Get out of here. Longlegs is not a perfect movie. It has not plenty of problems, but it has enough problems to not be close to being considered a perfect. I'm not sure Osgood Perkins has made a perfect movie yet. He made.
I will even go out on a limb and say Blackcoat's Daughter is better than Longlegs.
Oh yeah, 100%. Blackcoat's Daughter is amazing. The twist in Blackcoat's Daughter alone is well thought out and well earned too. On top of everything else, like, it feels like an actual twist that comes kind of out, not completely out of left field, but there's enough kind of being played with that you kind of don't see it coming. This movie, yeah, it's like there's 5 people. Like, one of them has to be involved somehow. And also when you open, and you and I were talking about this before, the opening of the movie I think is really well done, but the opening of the movie also just kind of gives away the entire movie, which is fine. Plenty of movies do those kind of cold open, you know, when looked at later in the movie, it will make more sense and it kind of recontextualizes things. But yeah, no, I don't think this is a perfect movie. And I think that the advertising is unfortunately making it seem like it's one thing when it's not. And this movie's going to find an audience with a lot more people once it's on streaming, once it's on VHS, VOD, whatever. I mean, this movie would be fun on VHS. Just think about it. Like, it's kind of a perfect VHS movie. Wouldn't you want to watch this movie in like VHS quality on a TV with a VCR?
Yeah,
like,
sure. But it's
right?
Also coming out on 4K. People
like in a month, like literally in a month.
Even though it sounds like, if you listen to every single thing I've said on this episode about it, it probably sounds like I am trashing it slightly. I really love this movie. It is still like, it's, I think, my 4th favorite of the year that I've seen so far.
I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd, and I bumped it up. I watched it all the way up until like the last 10 minutes, and I gave my review before that, and I was like, I don't think it's going to change before the end of the movie. Watched the end of the movie, and it went up. Which, again, I think the end of the movie is the master stroke, and that last thing with Nick Cage, Hail Satan, is fucking hilarious. Like, please sign me up for like whatever that was that you just did. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm with you. I enjoyed it. It's just, like anything else, we here at the Culture Cast have to be comprehensive with what we talk about, and we would not be doing you a service talking about a movie if we didn't talk about the things that are used to get people through the door to see said movies. So yeah, I would say check both these movies out. Good double feature for a Sunday in July, as it were.
Super fun double feature, nice change of pace, great juxtaposition between the two stories. All hail Glenn Powell, all hail Kiernan Shipka, all hail Micah Monroe, all hail Nicolas Cage, and hail Satan.
I would say Hail Satan last and foremost, just like last podcast on the left. Hail Satan, everybody. God. Anyways, speaking of where people can listen to things that aren't this, Ryan, where can people find you and the things that you work?
I am running the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, which has grown exponentially in the last few weeks. So go give that a look over. Pretty soon it's going to be with an actual website that I can actually link here. But yeah, it's you can find it over on our Spreaker profile for now. Go listen to the Disc Connected. Go listen to They Live by Film. Go listen to Unsung Horrors. Go listen to Criterion Now. Or one of our other 12 podcasts that we have.
As for the Culturecast, you can find the Culturecast over at weirdingwaymedia.com, along with all the other fantastic shows on the Weirding Way Media Network, including 80s TV Ladies, the Projection Booth Podcast, Dark Destinations, the newly bi-weekly, not once every 2 weeks, but twice a week midnight viewing, because Father Malone is a crazy. All those and more can be found at weirdingwaymedia.com. As for this show, culturecast.com, patreon.com/culturecast, where you can get involved monetarily, $10 or more, and you get to listen to Richard Adam, Mike White, and I talk about James Bond once a month, which is as fun as it sounds, which is to say it's a lot of fun. So yeah, check those out. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for going and seeing movies that I saw at the same time randomly, and that we just get to talk about them on a Monday, which is always fun.
By the way, that was not planned. For
No.
anybody listening, this was not planned, discussed, or anything.
I literally last night you were like, oh, I saw Twisters. You saw Twisters. Like, I'm watching Longlegs. You're like, I also saw it. I was like, we talk about these movies tomorrow then? And you were like, yeah, I guess so. And we had not planned on recording again until because you're taking a little siesta out to the West Coast like I did earlier this year. So
sure thing.
Yeah. So so safe travels to you. Thank you for joining me to talk about these movies. And as always, we'll catch you on the next episode.